Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and today we're going to debut a brand new segment on Heel Heat. This is going to be called It Came From the Network. Basically, I've ordered the WWE Network as a bunch of wrestling fans have, and I'm going through the annals of the history and I'm going to review some of the strangest, oddest, or just downright bad pay-per-views and shows and things that have happened in the history of wrestling. Kind of our homage to Mystery Science Theater 3000. Except, for legal purposes, we can't show video that is owned by Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Entertainment because we can't afford the rights. But this is kind of an homage to that, a review of what we've seen. And we're going to start it off with a bang. Probably the worst pay-per-view in the history of wrestling. ECW December To Dismember 2006. Now, don't let the title fool you. This is only ECW in name. By this time, WWE was fully working its way out of the ECW arena, or originals, I'm sorry, and turning ECW into basically their show for what they didn't know to do with people they have on under contract. But let's go right into the actual show. First match we have Eminem, Joey Mercury, and John Morrison and Joey Mercury versus the Hardy Boys. This is probably the best match of the show. This was a very solid tag team match, very entertaining, very fun to watch. It kind of got your hopes up that the pay-per-view would be something good, something at least watchable. Unfortunately, as you'll see as we go along, it didn't live up to that, but if there was one diamond in the rough, this would be this match. Very solid tag team match, great opener for a show. Hardy Boys pick up the win, which at that point, it was a Hardy Boy reunion. They hadn't tag teamed in, I think, a year, maybe 2 years before that. But it was an interesting match, good match to start the show. Kind of wish the momentum carried on to the next things that happened. Next up, we had Matt Striker versus Balls Mahoney. Two wrestlers I enjoy, and two wrestlers I've enjoyed in other things. This match was under Striker's rules, which meant no hair pulling, no off the top rope, just basically anti-hardcore. Which, if you've seen Balls Mahoney's career, you're pretty much limiting everything he could do. Balls is okay as a wrestler straight up, but we want to see him as the hardcore chair swinging freak that bashes people's heads in and dives through tables and all that good stuff. Stylistically, I just didn't think that these two clash or connected well, and that's kind of the theme with what we're seeing is the ECW originals versus the guys that were brought into ECW in the WWE revamp of it. Their styles didn't very well match up together. Like I said, I enjoy Matt Striker and I enjoy Balls Mahoney. Did not enjoy this match. Balls picks up the win. I guess it gives you the sentimental feeling for the WWE crowd, or the ECW crowd, I mean, at that point. Which was killed off rather quickly when the next thing we see is one of the guys involved in the main event Elimination Chamber, Sabu, is laid out in the back, thus eliminating him from the match and eliminating one of the real icons of ECW wrestling, one of the guys that almost every ECW fan identifies with. All wrestling fans identify him as an ECW guy and someone to cheer for. So kind of, again, jabbing at the original ECW, pushing it away to bring in Vince McMahon's version of ECW. Which we see more of next when we have Sylvester Terkay and Elijah Burke, who went on to become Pope D'Angelo Dinero in TNA, versus the FBI of Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke with Trinity. FBI is one of the most underrated tag teams in the history of wrestling, whether it be Smothers and Guido, or Guido and Mamaluke. They were a solid team. It's a real shame that on the big time in the WWE, they weren't allowed to show just how good they were. They were only relegated to the comedy aspects of them, which was a big aspect of what they did. I just think they could have done more with it. Sylvester Terkay was a guy, just one of the millions of big, muscular, brooding guys that was hired based on their look. They tried to do an MMA gimmick with him. Elijah Burke, he's a former amateur boxer gimmick. They had these two together, which was a weird combination, but it kind of worked okay. Terkay wasn't, he didn't last long on the roster. Burke either. The funny thing I thought was the ending, Terkay hits the muscle buster and the whole crowd starts chanting TNA, which, because of Samoa Joe, that I found it funny that just a little bit later, Elijah Burke is the Angelo De Niro in TNA. But, again, another match that just didn't fit, didn't work. The whole show kind of played out like an episode of Velocity or an episode of Sunday Night Heat. One of the lesser shows on WWE schedule, not a pay-per-view that you would pay money to watch, especially with the next match. Again, I don't know if it was done on purpose or just to me it seemed like it. We had an ECW original, Tommy Dreamer, the heart and soul of ECW, as it's been said millions of times, versus Daivari with Great Khali in his corner. Now, for those of you who don't remember, at one point Great Khali was actually a menacing giant that destroyed everybody, and this was during that time. He got his little bit of interference in. Daivari picks up a cheap win. After the match, Dreamer gets attacked by Khali on the stage. Like I said, I think, and I don't know what went on backstage in the booking of this. A lot of the ECW original guys were coming up on the end of their contract they got when they relaunched ECW, and to me it seemed like they were burying the guys on the way out and using them to get over what they thought was the next generation of ECW. Which, as we see, the guys that they put their money behind, for the most part, 7 years, 8 years later, are not with the company. And it wasn't even that quick. Within 2 to 3 years, a lot of them were not with the company. Which, again, why waste the guys that have name and value and could have brought you more money with the ECW brand? Next up, we probably had the worst match on the card, which is saying a lot because most of the matches were pretty bad. Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly versus Kevin Thorne and Ariel. Before the match, Kelly wishes CM Punk good luck later in the Elimination Chamber, which kind of leads to the finish where Knox leaves Kelly to get destroyed by Ariel. Another one of these things. Kelly at this point was not a great wrestler. She never evolved into a great wrestler. She evolved into a decent wrestler, a passable wrestler, but at this point she wasn't. Kevin Thorne, I liked him. I liked Mike Knox. I thought more could have been done with the two of them. They obviously had the size. They had the skill. Ariel is someone I thought she had a good look to her, a good gimmick. Her and Thorne, I think, worked well out of the newer ECW guys. But it is what it is. The Vampire team won, which brought out the Sandman, which, he did his little gimmick, drank some beers, and left. And then we had the clusterfuck shit patch match. The worst Elimination Chamber match I've ever seen. Probably one of the worst pay-per-view main events I've ever seen. This made Hulk Hogan and Zeus's match look like a 5-star Malenko Guerrero classic. We had the participants were Rob Van Dam, The Big Show, Test, Hardcore Holly, CM Punk, and Bobby Lashley. And to put this into perspective, what other pay-per-view has ever had Test or Hardcore Holly as the main event guy? Nothing against the two of them. I enjoyed both. I enjoyed Test immensely. I thought he was a great talent. Hardcore Holly, I have a lot of respect for. I have a lot of respect for what he did, how long he did it, and the wrestler he was. But by no means were either one of them a main event talent. And that's not a dig against them. Some guys just aren't. Some of my favorite wrestlers were never main event talents, but I enjoyed their work. But in this match, it was an elimination chamber. They all had weapons in the chamber, tried to do it a little bit extreme. To me, they killed anything that you would care of. The first elimination was the guy that got the biggest chance, and that was CM Punk. Even back then, the ECW fans seen, or the WWE/ECW fans, seen something in CM Punk that they liked. He gets eliminated first. Then next you get Bob Holly gets eliminated. Which after that, the only other person that the fans wanted to see win this, Rob Van Dam, gets eliminated third. So by the third elimination, you've got the fans not interested in the match. Doesn't matter what goes on from there, because Lashley eliminates Test and eliminates Big Show to win the ECW World Title. There's a lot of things that are wrong with this. Like I said, it was against what the fans wanted. Lashley was a terrible champion, terrible ECW champion. He was a marketable guy. They did a lot with him. He probably is more the hype machine than he was his own talent. He's, like I said, with a lot of these guys, they were gone within 2-3 years after this. Lashley had his moments, but the moments were built by the machine, not by him. You had guys, I would love to see them do something different, give CM Punk the title this early. Heck, Rob Van Dam is the guy that brought ECW back by mentioning to Vince the One Night Stand show, which brings us into the rebirth of ECW. Altogether, just a terrible, terrible pay-per-view. I don't recommend watching this unless you're like me and you're a sadist and you just want to watch something that's terrible. The only reason I watch this is because I wanted to start this segment and I wanted to watch some bad pay-per-views. I watched some good ones on the network as well, but this was the first one. I wanted to knock it out out of the way first so I don't ever have to think about it again. Probably the worst pay-per-view that's ever been put on by any wrestling company anywhere, and that covers a lot. But if you've seen our show before, we usually have a rating scale. We have a 1 to 5 system. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Now on our regular shows, our WWE and TNA reviews, we give the ratings a wrestler name. Kind of gives it a little bit of interest to us. Now we didn't do anything different for this, but for our It Came From the Network series, we have different names. Number 1's a Gobbledygooker, number 2's a Renegade, 3's a Hurricane, 4's a Goldust, 5 is a Kane. As you can see, as you move up the ladder, the better the wrestler gets. Kane, a weird, strange gimmick, but was awesome. Goldust, almost as cool as Kane, but still pretty cool. Hurricane, again, as you see, steps down and down. I'm going to give this show a 1, a Gobbledygooker. Like I said, I don't recommend anybody ever watching this unless you're a Bobby Lashley fan and you want to see him with one of his highlights of his career, even though the match was terrible. I don't recommend this at all. If anything, watch the first match, Eminem versus the Hardy Boys, then turn it off right away and get away as fast as you can. But basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been It Came From the Network.